Here.
Mrs. Casper,
Here.
Dr. Kennedy,
Here.
Mr. McCray,
Here.
Mr. McCree,
Here.
Mr. Schneider,
Here.
Mrs. Cocker.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please welcome the JROTC for the posting of the colors. Thank you to our JROTC, as always. We also have recognition of our drill team this evening, so I'd like to call to the podium Major New.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting me address the board. January 27th, excuse me, we completed our League 3 drill competition against Pine Grove, Panther Valley, Lebanon, Cedar Cliff, Redland, Cumberland Valley, Shikellamy, William Penn out of York. And we competed in 4 events: uniform unit inspection, arm drill, unarmed drill, and armed color guard. And out of those, we walked away with first place for all of those. So it's the hard work of the 2 commanders behind me who did all the work. So very proud of them. It was the first one that, as you look at that trophy, it rotates. There's 1 Carson Long or 2 Carson Long. They since closed, and the last 6 were pretty much Cumberland Valley. So we beat them in at their own game. So very proud of them for all the work they've done.
Congratulations on the hard work. Yes, thank you, Major New. We also have, for our next communication, a performance by the Wilson Theater Company cast of The Little Mermaid.
Pardon me, young lady. Anything else you require before bedtime? Very well then. Let's catch 40 winks. A big day tomorrow. Prince Eric must choose his bride. Mustn't look so blue. Secret to happiness, child? We mustn't wish for impossible things.
It's in my every glance.
louder than so wonderfully, impossibly familiar. Why do I feel dizzy in a way I've only felt like once before? How come when she looks at me it seems like time stops moving? Almost like that way it did that day upon the shore. But that
There were times I know she's not
all that's
time gives reason for my hands are moments close by. Guess it never will. I guess it doesn't show. But if I never find a way to tell you so, oh, what I would give if only you could know.
Bless her. Tomorrow the prince will have a pig of any girl he wants in the kingdom. How can a little mermaid compete with that? If only I knew how I'd make him see the light. If only it were up to me, this all would turn out right. And if I only could, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd simply wave me claw and make your dreams come true. And wouldn't that surprise you if you only? How could I have pushed her to the point of having no one left to turn to? Now that I have lost her, and it's all my fault, she's gone.
Not that voice. Where's that
There were times I know it's not
that
Turn back time, I change my just one more day for that.
time keeps racing forward and our moments almost
I'll
past.
try to understand.
Guess it never will.
I give my life up to make it happen. I should have started listening to you.
I wish that girl could have your voice.
What I would give if only you could know.
Down that ball, what will occur? Maybe I'll find that voice, but I'll lose
And there's donuts the week before, right?
Yes, this is the week before. Yes, this is the birthday in the lower house. Yes, thank you.
Special thanks to the Wilson Theater Company for that little preview. Remember that the tickets are available online, and I know we won't be missing it. I think both presentations, both communication pieces just highlight the extras that our students are involved in. Obviously, we didn't get to see the drill team perform. I mean, we have them come in as the JROTC, which is still impressive. I would be very nervous that I'd drop the flag or something. Just always impressed by our students and their multi-talents. The next communication piece, I'm going to hand off to Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, President Cocker. For our next communication tonight, we have Sean Dowdy again here from Crabtree, Rohrbrodt and Associates. He will take us through basically all the work that's been going on behind the scenes and through committee since the last time we presented before the board, which was in August. So Sean will kick us off, and then Mrs. Schlossman and I will join in towards the end. So Sean would like to bring you up to the podium to begin the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. and Thank you for having us back. We're excited to share the progress that we've been making on the Lincoln Park Elementary School and Southern Middle School projects. Got a lot of ground to cover tonight, and I know you've got a long agenda, so I'm going to try to go through efficiently, but don't hesitate to stop me with questions. We do have a open question and answer time at the end as well. Without further ado, is this set to full screen? I'll go over the agenda while we're getting that worked out. So I'm going to go over first the Lincoln Park site, the progress in design and cost estimate, where things stand for the new elementary school project, and then covering onward into the Southern Middle School project as well. Similarly, design, cost estimate, progress made. Talk a little bit about things that are upcoming ahead of us as far as our tasks as the design team goes, and then looking at it in a broader sense as far as the schedule and timeline for the projects as a whole and your involvement as a school board and a school district. I'm going to introduce to you the Act 34 process, which is specific for the Lincoln Park Elementary School project. I'll tell you why it's specifically just that one when we get there as well. Ms. Schlossman will go over funding and estimated construction costs, and then we'll talk about next steps. So, getting right into it, skipping very quickly. Things that we've done over the past few months since we've been authorized to proceed into schematic design. We've been meeting with Dr. Trickett and the entire administrative team approximately every 2 to 3 weeks on a repeated basis. So we're going over everything from building programs, initial ideas for building designs, layouts, things like that. So those building program discussions really resulted in layouts that I'll be sharing with you today. And we're also starting to talk about the site design, site layouts as well. So with that in mind, we've initiated land surveys, subsurface surveys, and traffic studies, particularly for the Lincoln Park Elementary School site. Informal conversations with Spring Township. That's important because there are zoning, I won't say concerns, but zoning hurdles that we're going to have to cross for both projects, but namely the Lincoln Park Elementary School site. And I'll tell you a little bit about those. We're starting to develop initial building massing. We're kind of getting there for both projects, but I'll be sharing with you the Lincoln Park Elementary School tonight. And we're just a little bit behind on the behind that on the Southern Middle School site. So next time we'll meet, I'll be sharing more information on initial massing for that with you. And we've engaged with civil engineers for preliminary civil engineering tasks. So that's starting to develop the site sketch for the land development process, determining if there's wetlands. There are not, which is favorable. And then we're also beginning our interior layouts with our interiors department. And in fact, Jen has quite a good start, so we'll be talking with Dr. Stout, Dr. Trickett, Dr. Hoffner about that in the coming days, about when we can actually have our specific meetings to that effect. So, moving on, the schematic design for the Lincoln Park Elementary School site plan is well underway. We've got a strong scheme going so far. We've turned it over to K&W engineers. We have the initial parts of the site survey complete, so they'll be starting to kind of implement this scheme into kind of reality. So what we're showing here is the Lincoln Park Elementary School kind of situated on kind of the plan east side, favoring Lawrence Avenue a little bit, with a play area kind of between the school and the neighborhood. That's specifically designed so that that play area can be an active site in the evenings, on weekends, outside of school times. And then having the parking area on the planned left side, which is closest to where we're proposing the main entrance to the site, being off of West Wyomissing Court. So that is a considerable thing that we're proposing here for couple reasons. One is we're really trying to keep the burden of the traffic away from the neighborhood. So using West Wyomissing Court seems to favor that significantly. And then two, it's important to understand that, and I'll get into this a little bit later too, there are some zoning matters and kind of site and property matters involved with that as well. I'll note real quick that the way that we're situating the building on the site and where the mass of the building occurs is really a response to the neighborhood itself. You can see the building kind of has offsetting wings. The one that is kind of toward the left, upper left, is the two-story part. So we're trying to keep that a little bit away from where the single-family homes are along Fillmore and Lawrence Avenue. And then that other wing is the one-story wing. The building will sit up on a little bit of a hillside, so we're really trying to keep the larger volumes and the bulk of the building away from those streets where it might not be so appropriate to have a two-story structure. So then we'll have a little bus drop-off loop and parent drop-off loop. We keep them separated for safety on site so that when the students are getting out of either vehicle, they can meet in the middle and then walk to the building without having to cross any sort of traffic or bus traffic and parent drop-off traffic kind of intersecting with each other. And then the last thing I'll mention is the service area on the planned north side. So kind of using that access drive from West Wyomissing Court, keeping it along the planned north edge of the site, and then we could have a back-end loading area, service area for the building in that backside of the building. We would probably be separating this side of the site from the townhouses across the street, likely with some plantings, taller trees, things of that nature, just to give it that kind of visual separation. A lot of times they don't like, headlights from cars in the evenings crossing over property lines, things like that. So this is the first floor plan. So you can see how we have the offsetting classroom wings. The main entrance would be to the top side, planned north. And you can see that we're proposing what we call a Main Street feature running north-south through the building that connects the classroom wings and all of the major spaces. So you can see our Main Street would connect first the second and third grade classroom wing, which is also the fourth and fifth grade classroom wing upstairs. Before getting to the media center, you can see that on the left, music and art, and then the multi-purpose room, which would be cafeteria and gymnasium during the day, and also serving as kind of an auditorium space in the evening, similar to your other elementary schools. So we're keeping all of those more public spaces right off of that Main Street corridor, and then all the classroom wings offset from that. And all those classroom wings can be closed off both for weekend or evening use, keeping the public out of them, but also for safety and security reasons. If you ever had an incident that you needed to shut down, close, and lock those doors, they could be done so from a flick of a switch from the administration office. Oops. Second floor, again, it's just the one wing that's getting 2 stories. I should mention that we're trying to include some SGI classrooms on each floor. So we have a pair of SGI classrooms on each floor. On this floor, you can see the kind of on the top left side of that program area is a discovery classroom as part of the program for the primary curriculum. On the first floor, not to go back, but right below that is a pair of SGIs that would have a folding partition between them. So that can be opened up to a larger teaching space as well. We do also have, in addition to those, one extra flex classroom that you can see on the top right corner of this slide. Okay. So I'm kind of scrolling through a couple of the massing images that we've created so far. So this is kind of working around the building. Here's the front entrance. You can see we're trying to open up the main entrance as well as those discovery classrooms, the SGI, and that which can open up to a larger LGI right there at the front. And then you can see the two-story classroom wing to the left. The administrative area is right there on the right. You can see a sloped roof on the right there. That's the media center. So we're proposing making that a larger volume. It's more enjoyable for the students for reading and media center purposes. So opening that up. And then you can see the one-story classroom wing to the right there. So that's the kindergarten and first grade classroom wing. You can also see we're showing a designated pre-K and kindergarten play area as well, so they would have their own specialized play area for their needs at that age level. So here you can see the side facing more the neighborhood side, so it's a little dark as it shows on the screen, but that'd be kind of the opposite end entrance that could certainly be used for evening events, things like that. If the people attending are coming directly from the neighborhood. But the idea is that we can kind of have a corridor kind of passing right through the building as, you know, this is a neighborhood spot really tailored to the residents of this area. This is the service side, and then you can also see the two-story classroom wing. What you see there kind of on the corner is the stairway for that second floor. We like to open those up if we can. Looking inside a little bit, again, this is just massing. You know, we're trying to open up that Main Street corridor. There will be the stair to the left. Of course, it will have railings and everything like that, but the idea is that that stair will be kind of an active part of the design of the building. So any students going up there would be kind of part of the whole procession to class at the beginning and end of every day. What you can see there is part of the building or that Main Street area is a little bit lower. We're going to have some crossings for mechanical, plumbing, things like that, going from the mechanical room, which would be tucked behind to the left, over to the classroom wings or the classroom wing to the right. So I'm anticipating that we're going to have some point where we're going to have to drop it a bit. But then when you get to the other side, it would open back up. So you can see how we're trying to keep the multi-purpose room somewhat open to the corridor or the Main Street area. Keep that as open and lively as possible. You also see that we're trying to do what we can to get clear story lighting, natural daylight as best as we can into the core of the building, keeping it as bright as possible. So of course there's going to be ceilings, lighting, mechanicals, all that kind of stuff. That'll start getting populated in the model as we bring our MEP engineers further involved. So there's a lot to be developed here, but you can see from a massing standpoint the concept that we're proposing so far. So this slide touches on some of the things that we're going to be working on over the next weeks and months, particularly from a site development standpoint. So what you see kind of in the yellow box is the current property lines. It's actually 3 properties, and we're going to have to merge them into a single property. But the area where the red box kind of targets or hones in on, what's actually happening there is your property line does not meet the right-of-way. It actually is set back a little bit from it, and there are 2 properties between your property and West Wyomissing Court. So one of the things we'll be working on over the weeks and months ahead is obtaining our right-of-way so that we can use West Wyomissing Court as a way in and out of the site. Some zoning variances that we will have to obtain in order to do this. One is non-conforming use. That's kind of an important one, and you might ask, why do we have to do that if there was previously a school already on this site of the same use? The reason being is the size of the building that we're putting in scales dramatically bigger than what was there before, well greater than 200%. So because of the significant increase of size, we're still going to have to obtain a non-conforming use variance. We don't see any challenges with that. It's just something that we will have to take care of in the weeks and months ahead. Similarly, for parking, we are anticipating that we're going to need to obtain a variance for parking. In other words, we're not likely to meet the required amount of parking that the ordinance lays out as a requirement. It's kind of to be determined once K&W gets their site layout fully up to speed, but it is something that we're anticipating. So there is fairly limited area for parking on site, being a 7.5-acre site. And then the last one is the maximum building height. We're going to be exceeding the 30-foot maximum building height for flat roofs. Not by much, but we will be exceeding it slightly, just kind of as a nature of a two-story building. It's the height that we're going to need. Again, we don't see any real big hurdles to get over to get that variance, but again, it's something that we're going to have to pursue. Looking at costs for the Lincoln Park site, right now where we stand is estimating between $31.5 and $34.9 million. So that's taking into account where we are relative to the anticipated construction timeline, as well as where we see the cost of construction being today and the escalation for the difference in time. That's also taken into account all of our soft costs, including our fees, civil engineers. We're going to need food service, traffic study. We're trying to account for every last cost that we can think of in this. We're also including an allowance of $975,000 for furniture. It's a brand new school. You're going to need brand new furniture with it in all likelihood. So that is where we stand at this point for that project. Southern Middle School, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Again, we've been meeting every 2 to 3 weeks with the administrative team, and again, formulating this, making progress on the program for the building, as well as where that leads, of course, to the design and layout of all the rooms within it. We're starting to make headway on site layout. It's not incredibly complicated because we're not doing a whole lot to it, but we are also making headway in getting those surveys that we're going to need for the land survey, subsurface. We've been doing our building surveys periodically over the last several months. And then again, we've gotten a good headway on interior room layouts that we'll be going over with the administrative team in the next couple of weeks. And then again, we've began studies on our design and massing, so we're looking forward to sharing those with you when we get them to a point that we feel are ready. So as far as what this looks like, so this is kind of the overall first floor plan. I'll get into the building plans a little bit more with blown up plans to follow, but looking at the site as a whole, kind of the top left corner of the building is where the addition is. That's roughly a 10 classroom, not roughly, it is a 10 classroom addition, and it's over on the Windmill Road side of the building. That addition will encroach on building setbacks required by zoning ordinance, so we'll be looking for variances to that effect as well on this property. But that is the addition. There's also an addition kind of right off the main entrance on the bottom side. It's all those rooms that are in pink. That's basically a new entrance, administrative area, guidance offices, and special education offices. And then we'll be looking to make some improvements to the kind of event entrance toward the middle of the building. The site as a whole, we're going to be looking to make a little bit of an expansion to the existing parking, probably in the range of 20 spaces. We'll see when Civil gets that worked out completely how much that ends up being, but I'm estimating probably 20 to 22 spaces. That addition to the parking lot is kind of a home run because we're going to be tackling stormwater and land development as a result of this project. So we have to do something with that stormwater. Not likely to have any room for retention ponds or anything like that, so it's going to be underground. And as soon as we're digging up ground, we might as well expand the parking lot as we cover it again. So that's our opportunity to do so. And then, of course, on the far right-hand side is the elementary school, which we're really not tackling in this project at all. Okay, so looking at the floor plans itself, what we're proposing, of course, is the 10 teaching space addition, the top left. That's primarily based or focused on science classrooms and labs. So we have a total 9 classrooms for science when it's all said and done. So 3 science areas per grade, and they are increasingly larger and more populated with science equipment as the grades go. So the 6th grade rooms would be pretty much classrooms, and then 7th grade rooms would be classrooms plus some demonstration areas for the teachers, and then the 8th grade would be full-blown science labs. So you can see how, as you progress through the grades, the equipment, the size, and all the furnishings for the science labs increases as you go too. What we're doing as far as the classroom arrangements is kind of around the bottom edge, bottom side, left side of the classroom area will be the 6th grade wing, and then the top side of the classroom area is the 7th grade. That one, the 7th grade will actually span both floors, so it's split between the 1st and 2nd floor. And then the 8th grade, you'll see, and the slides follow, is right above the 6th grade on the 2nd floor. What we're trying to do is allow for some kind of breakout spaces, open areas, one for every classroom grade in the design. So if I may, I'll use the laser pointer. So right here would be the one for the 6th grade, and then the 7th and 8th grade would both be upstairs, one right here and one right here. All of those areas, we're taking out some kind of undersized small group instruction or special education spaces and making that kind of open, collaborative breakout spaces that students can go to and be easily monitored by faculty for small group discussions. As a result of the additions, we're able to relocate those programs that are being taken from those areas to more appropriately sized rooms. And that's a big driver for the project as a whole. What you see here on the 2nd floor plan of the classroom area, there's boxes circled in light blue. Those are all areas where the roof is exposed, or there's roof to the floor below. In other words, the floor below is it's just a one-story area. Those are areas that we can take a good opportunity to put in solar tubes to bring in natural daylight to all of those areas below. So the 2 on the left are over the library or media center area. So that's a great way to bring in some natural daylight to the media center, which I think will be really well received. And then the 2 on the right would be over the student commons areas that we're opening up. One is already opened up, used to be the locker commons, and then the other one will be opening up as a result of some demolition. So here you can see the 8th grade science labs. These are the larger science spaces. 8th grade also has one downstairs. It's just by nature of how the addition was laid out given the site restraints. So the addition will also, of course, have all the amenities that we need to bring an addition on board, including the restrooms, data closets, staff toilets, a little bit of storage, things like that. One of the biggest challenges to the circulation around Southern Middle School is how students get from the area like just planned south of the media center over, to this area and upstairs. That's a big kind of bottleneck point circulation-wise. We are resolving that in multiple ways, as a matter of fact. So just by virtue of the fact that we're adding an addition, what we can do is open up this stairwell, eliminate the stair, and then we would have a new one at the end here. And then that basically forms a gigantic loop around the classroom wing. And then also currently, if you recall, just planned south of this stair, there's a relatively narrow corridor running east-west, and then there's a kind of a zigzagging ramp that goes down to the media center level. What we're proposing is to eliminate that ramp and have a straight run ramp right here, and basically add in another corridor right through here. And the reason we've chosen to do that is there are two classrooms right here and right here that have access points through the media center to get to them. Yes, there are access points on the other side of them, but they are not accessible because of the stairs within them. So just by virtue of the fact that you have to leave this area open in the media center as it is, we've chosen to kind of take that and make a corridor space and then kind of make a centralized entrance into the media center as well while we're doing that. So that's yet another passageway kind of through to this side of the building, the new addition side of the building. With all these means, I think your circulation problems will be resolved. Looking at the rest of the first floor, sorry. There we go. This is kind of the extracurricular side for the most part. You'll notice that we're changing what is currently the administrative area just to the planned west side of the auditorium. We're making that a new choral and music room. Those spaces are currently upstairs in the classroom wing, which is pretty far departure from where the rest of the music program currently is. So we're bringing them much closer. They can also serve well as like a staging area for, we might call it a backstage area for the stage during musicals and events in the auditorium. So that's a really significant move. You can also see the administrative addition that we're putting on. And then largely, we're not doing a whole lot to the auditorium, the rest of the music, or the tech ed areas. Around the gymnasium, the existing phys ed locker rooms, there's boys and girls on either side, are really oversized right now, given how locker rooms are used today. So we're proposing shrinking them down a little bit, making them more appropriately sized, getting rid of the group shower facilities since they aren't used at all. And then we're going to bring in a health classroom just to the plan south of the boys' locker room. That's really convenient because the health instructors usually are the gymnasium or the gym instructors as well. So there's going to be a really strong adjacency between them. In fact, we're even including a doorway between the gym and the health classroom as well. There is some storage within each of the existing boys and girls phys ed locker rooms. To replace that, since that would be lost, on the opposite side of the health classroom would be a large phys ed storage area. Then the last thing I'll cover on this slide is the cafeteria. We know that the cafeteria on the middle school side of the building is undersized given the number of students and the servings that we have available. It's a little bit challenging to outright expand the cafeteria because the building is not sprinklered, and you would take on a significant cost to sprinkler the whole building. But what you can do is open up one side of it with a kind of an operable fire door, or wand door, as it's called proprietarily. There are other companies as well. We would propose kind of a bifolding wand door that maybe 99% of the time is open. And that basically allows the cafeteria space to spill out into the open commons that we're creating when we demolish the special education offices and the LGI that's in that area. So by opening that up, that kind of produces a space that is a little bit more open and common to what we're seeing in the secondary levels of education. But that still allows us to comply with the fire code so that these can shut in the event of a fire alarm, something like that. Per the building code, without sprinklers, spaces like cafeteria, all the classroom wings, things like that, need to be separated from corridors with rated construction. And by having a operable rated partition, that allows us to comply with that. So we look to be giving you some ideas in our coming meetings what that ultimately would look like. But I think you'll like having a nice open cafeteria, and also that may better suit the number of students. We're also looking at potentially making some adjustments to how the serving area works within the kitchen. This is something that we're still investigating, and I'll be looking forward to giving you some more information as we learn more. I've been reaching out to food service consultants to get some preliminary ideas. We've done things like this before where we bring kind of the serving lines out into the cafeteria itself and kind of leaving the kitchen operations behind. Those are some ideas we can look into, but they're still kind of under further investigation. At this point, we're not budgeting for any food service or kitchen replacements, but if we're electing to do a little bit of servery work, we'll add that to the budget and we'll let you know. We'll advise you. So how do we tackle what this could look like as far as a budget goes? Well, what we're doing is we're kind of breaking the building down into several different categories. Some areas we're going to be touching heavily, other areas not so much. What we do know is across the board, the building requires an HVAC system replacement. So everything that is existing is getting that HVAC replacement. And when I say that, I also mean lighting replacement and ceiling replacements as well, because they would come along with replacing the HVAC equipment. So what you're seeing here is the most heavily touched areas are areas in red. Those are areas that are getting walls totally demolished. We're reconfiguring entire layouts to accommodate this. And then all new finishes, the whole 9 yards, casework, and of course the HVAC replacement. And then working down, orange, we're not tearing down walls, but we might be giving significant new finish work, casework where the rooms require casework, so on and so forth. And then yellow's a step down from that. We might be painting classrooms, but not redoing casework. But of course, again, doing HVAC replacement throughout. And then the green is that quote-unquote HVAC replacement only. The blue areas, of course, are the new additions. So we're going to be providing everything that we need to support new construction areas. So you can see we then are able to get square footages for all those kind of different levels of renovations or new construction. And then same thing on the second floor, and getting a tabulation for those. And that's how we can start to build what the cost estimate would look like. I do draw your attention really quick. At the second floor, you can see I've drawn some heavy red and heavy green lines. The green lines are, of course, where the corridor currently is on the second floor. The red lines are where the kind of east-west moving corridor is on the first floor. You can see they don't stack up. It is a steel structure building. It is not masonry load bearing, so that kind of frees us to make some adjustments that help with the flow of the building on the first floor. So what we've elected to do is move the corridor on the first floor, plan south, so that you effectively have a double-loaded corridor with classrooms on both sides of it, just like on the second floor. And that's what allows us to make that move, to kind of reconfigure the ramp around and through the media center area and to help improve your circulation problems currently encountered at the middle school. Okay. And then we take those square footages of the various different levels of renovations, and through projects that we've bid recently, RS Means and other sources of data, we're able to start producing kind of dollars per square foot for each of those different levels of renovations. So you can see we've got HVAC only, minor renovation, moderate renovation, so on and so forth, all the way through new construction. We've also recently bid a very similar project, as it turns out, in Lebanon County, and those bids turned out favorably, so there was good data to pull from as far as estimating goes. So at the end of the day, where we're sitting right now for a total project cost estimate for Southern Middle School is $44.7 to $49.4 million. As a comparison, if you were to do an HVAC-only project, not making any renovations or making any changes to educational program or anything like that, we are estimating that to be around $14.6 to $16.1 million. Again, that would include lighting and ceiling replacements. It is a slightly lower number than I presented to the Facilities Committee last week. We went back and talked with the engineers about that. Previously, we were just kind of assuming it would take on the HVAC-only renovation cost, which we're saying is $65 a square foot from the renovation project, and attributing that to just an HVAC-only project. But in reality, that's not quite the case. If we're not renovating anything, all of the electrical wiring above the ceilings would not have to be replaced. What we do have to do if we're renovating it is replace the wiring, because the areas above the ceilings are called plenums. That's where all the return air is going from every classroom, and it's not ducted. So when we're using plenum returns, all of the wiring within the plenums, low voltage wiring, power wiring, has to be plenum rated. If we're not renovating, that is not a concern. So that's one area where the cost did go down a little bit for the HVAC only project. So the difference between the full addition renovation project and HVAC only would be about $30.1 to $33.3 million. And that works out to, if you do the math, HVAC only being roughly 33%, or a third of the cost of taking on the additions and renovation project as a whole. So coming up, as we look to move into design development, bringing on the balance of our engineers and consultants so that they can get HVAC, electrical, plumbing, food service for Lincoln Park Elementary, getting all of those parts of the design really up and rolling. To this point, they've been kind of hanging out in the background. I've been reaching out to them with questions and consulting when needed, but they haven't been doing significant design to date. We'll also want to get in front of Spring Township and the planning and zoning committees and boards to get into more official discussions about those variances that we're seeking, and then, of course, the land development process is a part of that as well. We also want to encourage the school district to begin the process of obtaining that right-of-way to West Wyomissing Court for the Lincoln Park Elementary School. Of course, as I mentioned a couple times, we'll be meeting with the administration for interiors meetings, so we expect that to be coming in the next couple of weeks. We'll be continuing our massing design work, building design development packages. So that's when we're starting to actually build sets of drawings in the next phase. So it's a significant phase upcoming from our end. I mentioned getting land development process underway. We're going to have to obtain individual approvals for each project through the Berks County Conservation District. So that is a time-consuming process that the civil engineers take on. So if we're looking to meet our schedule, which I'll show you in a minute, we really want them to get that really up and running. K&W has been starting on that process. As I said, they're preparing their initial sketch plans, but we want to make sure they keep it going. And then community outreach, especially for the Lincoln Park project. That's something that's on our agendas coming up over the next week or so. So we're looking forward to that as well. I think Dr. Trickett will be talking about that a little bit further. Goodness. Sorry about this. Schedule. So what we're shooting for right now for the Lincoln Park project, being a new construction project, is a little bit more straightforward from the design standpoint to get all the documentation produced for bidding. So at this point, we're anticipating being complete with the design for Lincoln Park project at the end of the summer, so bidding it early fall, September and October, for the bid period for elementary school. So that kind of makes our schedule for schematic design, design development, construction documentation pretty straightforward, roughly 3.5 month increments for each phase. And then we would look for construction to start November, December, and be able to turn the building over to you for occupancy in July of 2026. That's a 20-month construction duration. We find that pretty comfortable for a building of this size. Southern Middle School, being an additions and renovation project, it was a little bit more involved from a design standpoint. There's existing factors that we have to take into account, a lot of surveying, things like that. The duration for design is a little bit longer. Currently, we're planning on up to September, October for design, and then bidding it toward the end of the year. And then a construction duration of 26 months. Talking about construction duration for Southern Middle School, being a renovation project of an occupied building, that one's going to take a little bit longer, and there's going to be a lot of phasing to work out, both from the design standpoint and from the building operations standpoint. We know that you're not going to be able to give up too many rooms at a single time. And that's among the other discussions we need to have, is how many rooms can you give up? Currently, we're not planning on any modular classrooms. We'd like to avoid it if we can. So we'll be working with the administration to figure out how we can phase the project and still get it done in a timely manner. So right now, we're looking at a 26-month duration for that construction. I'll also mention that the timing of that works out fairly well. If we can get construction going by the first of the year next year, the idea is that, particularly from electrical and mechanical side of things, the contractors will be able to obtain equipment in time to get kind of the first area complete by the end of that first summer, which is really important so that we can keep that construction phasing moving along. If we were to start it at a different time of year, or if we were to start it, say, at the end of the school year in 2025, that kind of eliminates that kind of advantage of being able to turn something over that first summer. The way lead times are for mechanical equipment, some electrical equipment still, it's good to have that leading up 5 months or so before that summer, so that the equipment can be obtained, work can be done, and you can turn over spaces by the first of the next school year. So looking as far as broad schedule, of course today we're meeting together to talk about our schematic design. February 28th, we're looking to have our community meeting for the Lincoln Park Elementary School. Again, I'll let Dr. Trickett speak to that a little bit more coming up. March 4th would be the day that you would vote as a board to authorize to proceed in design development for both projects. The April and May timeframe is when the Act 34 process will take place, and I'll tell you about that in the next couple of slides. And then the May school board meeting will give you design development progress updates, and then you will vote in subsequent meetings to authorize to proceed into construction documentation, final phase of design. So, Act 34. What is Act 34? That was legislation that passed. It is state law that passed in 1973. It's otherwise known as the Taj Mahal Act. And basically, the intent of it is to ensure that new construction or major additions are not blown out of proportion. You're not spending wildly sums of money on extravagant finishes, things like that. It keeps your cost control checks and balances in line with PD requirements and state law. So how does that actually get conducted? What's that process look like? We've actually, in a way, already started it when we did the facility study a couple years ago. So we've looked at options that you could take on as a school district, grade alignments, who's going where to what buildings, things like that. And then you've ultimately decided to embark on a new construction project for the Lincoln Park site. We'll describe the project, and then we'll talk about the cost, the financing, what the tax impact of the project is. And then the other part of it is making sure that there is good opportunity for public comment so that you as a school board are getting as much public feedback about it as possible before you make your decisions to embark on it. So what we'll be doing is preparing a booklet for you that includes all of those things that I just mentioned, the reason that the project is needed, what options did we consider when we were deciding to do this. We'll talk about what your assets are as a school board, as a school district, as far as your buildings and your land that you already have. We'll talk about more specifics of what this project actually is, what the classroom counts are, how many students, what it'll look like in broad terms. And we'll show site plans, floor plans, things like that. And then we'll go over what the project cost estimates are, what the project accounting would look like. And we go over all of those different costs, and this is all done through PlanCon forms. Now you're asked, why is PlanCon involved if they're not reimbursing right now? That is true, they are not, but they still require us to use their forms to deliver all of these different pieces of information, especially regarding cost, capacity, things like that. So then we'll also have your financial advisor, Raymond James. Ms. Schlossman will be heavily involved in a lot of the information that goes in this booklet too. And they'll talk about the debt service and what that impact is on the taxes as well. And then at the end of the booklet is a piece that is called the Board Resolution of Maximum Project Cost and Maximum Building Construction Cost. And that's what I'll tell you about next. The final part is a notice for public hearing. So this ultimately ends up as a public hearing that is distinctly separate from your board meeting. Mr. Maravich will kind of lead the proceedings for that, I believe. And then there will be a stenographer here, and that's just a time for us to present this as a team to the public and allow them specific time and day for public comment specific to this project. The last point I'll make is, why does it apply to Lincoln Park New Elementary School and not Southern Middle School additions and renovations, or for that matter, the additions and renovations you're doing to the high school? The reason being is it applies to all new construction, full stop, and then it applies to major building additions. Now, what exactly is a major building addition? They're looking at it in terms of, they being the state and PDE, looking at it in terms of building value, which although not directly is fairly synonymous with or correlated with building size and square footage. What they're looking for are additions that exceed the value of the existing building by 20%. So Southern Middle School does not come close to that. The addition for the Performing Arts Center at the high school did not come even close to that. So we didn't have to go through this process for either of those. Okay. So that resolution for maximum building construction costs. So on the right, you can see this is the page that would go into that Act 34 booklet. We'll be talking about the maximum project costs, the all-in costs, as well as the maximum building construction costs for the new additions. It's that maximum building construction cost that is the key number here. And we'll be advising you of that number probably sometime mid to late March. Let you think about that, discuss that as a school board, and then you will take up this resolution in April, and this resolution by roll call vote will become part of that Act 34 booklet. That maximum building construction cost is not that bottom line number that I'm presenting to you today, not that estimate. It is not the number that when you add up all the successful prime bidders numbers. It's not that number either. What it is the building cost minus site work, renovations if that applies, soft costs and contingencies. So on bid day, when the contractors submit their bids, they're also going to be submitting what's called a GO8 form. This is, again, one of the PlanCon forms that they will attribute what portion of their bid applies to the maximum building construction cost. And then when you take all of the prime contractors' GO8 numbers and add that together, that's what you get for the maximum building construction cost. We can estimate that and advise you on that number, and then that's what you will take as a resolution. What does that number actually mean? On bid day, when those contractors give you that GO8 form, if their total is under within 8% of the resolved maximum building construction costs, we're good to go. However, if it exceeds 8%, if it's higher, you will have to go through another Act 34 hearing. Doesn't mean you can't do the project, but you do have to go through another hearing to do so. That's what that means. Okay, is that clear? Okay. And then you'll, after you resolve that maximum building construction cost, I'll present to you that booklet, and then again, we'll probably allow you to discuss it as a board, think about it, and then at your following meeting, you'll take a vote to approve that booklet. After you approve the Act 34 booklet, it will be advertised for a public hearing. That advertising has to occur for a minimum of 20 days. It'll go to local newspaper, and then after that 20-day period, there would be an Act 34 hearing where, again, like I said, we'll be presenting all of this publicly. We tentatively have that scheduled for May 8th. After the Act 34 hearing, a 30-day comment period will commence when the public can bring in comments to you. And then after that, that is pretty much it. If this were a reimbursable project, there would be more steps after that. But they're not reimbursing right now. It's not, PlanCon is not currently funded. So that's pretty much the end of the timeline for Act 34. Okay. So, funding.
Good evening. It does go fast. Here we go. Am I making you seasick yet? Okay. Wow. Okay. We're going to start there. All right, good evening. So just to recap what Sean just presented for costs. So this slide shows the ranges that he presented. So for Lincoln Park, we're looking at $31.5 to $34.9 million. Southern Middle School, $44.7 to $49.4 million. For a total Phase 2 cost of $76.2 to $84.3 million. Now, we had talked about this last August when we were looking at Phase 2. We still will have approximately $14 to $15 million left over from our 21C bond, which we took out for the original Phase 1 project. So if we incorporate that into this consideration of new debt that we would need to issue for Phase 2, we would be able to utilize that leftover money. So we would have a final estimated funding need for Phase 2 of $61.2 to $70.3 million. So as Raymond James had discussed last August with the board thoroughly, and it is also linked on our website as well, this is just a recap of our current situation. So Wilson School District has existing debt of $100.3 million with the final maturity in less than 10 years. Our annual debt service payments are $10.9 million. That's been in place at that stabilized rate for since 2019-20 timeframe. We have the ability to borrow an additional $160 million. Our estimated construction funding, as we saw on the slide before, is $70.3 million. Currently, the estimated projection if we would use or need to issue the $70 million would be in another 13 additional years to pay the debt. That would be at our current run rate of that $10.9 million. The board does have the option to look at other alternatives to having the $10 million run rate, and that's something that Raymond James will present in the future at a finance committee meeting and to the full board as well. We can maintain our AA debt rating with this debt issuance, and that is a high rating for a school district, and that allows us to attain a lower interest rate. And I will turn it over to Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, Ms. Schlossman and Mr. Dowdy. So the next part here is just to recap quickly for the board and the community the next steps in the timeline, as Sean has already presented. But specifically, I wanted to call attention to February 28th, next Wednesday, right here in this room at 6 o'clock, the opportunity to engage our community members, taxpayers, and the Lincoln Park community. So the next slide really talks about this opportunity. So the process that we've gone through thus far is today or tomorrow, roughly 600 to 650 residents in the properties and the roads directly adjacent to or closest to the site of this school will be receiving a letter from us, from our team, inviting them to this meeting. And the meeting is really an opportunity for us to speak directly to those folks who live in the community who would be most impacted by the addition of a school on this current site. So we're going to take the opportunity to go through some of the slides that many of you have seen now a variety of different times to make sure that they're updated to the same degree that everyone else that's watching tonight is. And then also provide an opportunity to hear from them in regards to any thoughts or concerns or recommendations that they have for us, as we know that those folks who live closest to the site are more intimately aware of some of the challenges and some of the benefits of a project like this and how it would impact their kids or their particular needs in the community. So there will also be a district-wide communication. Obviously, everyone is welcome to this event. Although we felt it was important to directly message through direct mail, those families who may or may not be paying attention to the regular, conversations that occur at this board meeting. So in addition to that, I just want to jump out of here very quickly and remind all of our community members that on our district website, as you scroll down under the quick links section, under facilities, projects, and updates, we are receiving some questions, as everyone would expect, and it's very much appreciated regarding the different processes and projects we have. This website is very comprehensive, and it includes pretty much information going all the way back to 2019. Conversations that we had in this boardroom, town hall meetings, forums, debates, conversations. It includes board votes on a variety of different topics. But specifically, if you go up to the top right-hand corner and you go to facilities projects, there is a ton of information on this link specifically. So one of the conversations that we continue to engage in as a community is this idea of growing enrollment. Students that continue to come into our schools and doing our best over the last 5 years to project. It is very difficult to do so. However, there is some really good information. Anywhere where you see an underline in this section refers to prior board conversations that we've had. So if we may say, as presented in August, this is a quick access point for everyone to see exactly what was presented and what we discussed. Thought exchange, community input, feedback. And again, what will happen later this week after we did this formal presentation to the board and to the community is this will be updated. And then after our March 4th board meeting and the resolution that will be put forth there, you will see a March 2024 update as well. So just wanted to make sure I drew everyone's attention to that as well. That concludes our formal presentation. I turn it over to President Cocker for board conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Schurkett. Thoughts from the board? Any questions for any of the presenters this evening? Mr. Schneider?
I was wondering if Mr. Dowdy could address, I know previously we had really desired 4 classrooms per grade level at Lincoln Park. Could you speak a little bit to the logistical issues with doing that?
A big one is what the site can fit. I'd mentioned that we're already likely facing a variance to get less parking than the ordinance already requires, just for a 3 classroom per grade. I think that hurdle becomes more of an obstacle as we increase the size of the building. I did mention that we are working in a little bit of flexible space. We do have 1 extra classroom, so that if you have certain years that are a little bit larger than others, that extra classroom can help accommodate that need, as well as the flexible space, particularly on the first floor. That's currently 2 SGIs with the folding partition. That can be opened up to a larger space as well. So there are ways that this building can accommodate fluctuations in enrollment year by year. But I think from a site perspective as a whole, it really can't take on a 4 classroom per grade, and us being able to obtain the variances and site design getting worked out the way it needs to. That being said, we also have had conversations about scale of the building relative to the neighborhood. So those points that I made about, the single-story classroom wing being the side that's closest to the neighborhood, we kind of lose our opportunity to kind of have that kind of response to neighborhood dynamics within the building design as well. So that's another thing that's on our mind, but it's really site restraints that's driving it.
Thank you. Can I also ask you a question to address about Southern? Regards to the renovations project, can you speak to the necessity to do the HVAC system regardless of whether we move forward with any other renovations?
Yeah, it's due. The building needs it. It's something that we've highlighted in our facility study 5 years ago, and now we're 5 years later, and the need is ever greater. One point that I didn't make in the presentation, but I'll make now, is that in the renovation and addition version of that, We are soup to nuts replacing every last part of the HVAC system. So that includes all of the ductwork and all of the piping, which it's all kind of at the timeline that it should be replaced. Now, that being said, with heavy investigation, could some be reused? Maybe, but it's at the time frame that it should be holistically replaced. So that's the approach that we're taking. So it's soup to nuts replacement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Case?
A couple of questions. They're sort of related. I guess with regard to the township meetings, if you could talk a little bit about the cost of the design phase that we would be approving in two board meetings. And the reason I ask is because if there's a lot of sort of unknowns or contingencies, how far down the road, I don't think we should be approving the design phase if we can't get a variance or a right-of-way and the whole project's killed. So how do we protect ourselves from that? So I'll pause for that question.
Sure. I guess I'll preface it by saying that we don't really see challenges in getting those variances. We're pretty comfortable with obtaining all of them that I've outlined to you thus far. So that being said, the next phase is design development, and the way our billing works for basic services is that is 35% of our total cost for our services. So that basically comes out to $519,446 for our basic services for the design development phase. That being said, we invoice you monthly, not all at once. And then the same can be said for the non-basic services, which are outside of that. So civil, they do their invoicing separately, but it's probably on a similar, roughly 35% of their total fee. So in the case of Lincoln Park, that would be about $92,000, almost $93,000. And then the aspect of it that we haven't really touched upon is food service. We're going to need to get them involved to proceed the design from their perspective for all the kitchen equipment. So that's $8,750 estimated. We don't have proposals from them yet, so kind of consider that an allowance. So when you add that all together, the design development phase for Lincoln Park would be $621,128 approximately. So like I said, we invoice that on a monthly basis. It's not like all at once. I do think that a lot of this work needs to continue in order to meet the construction schedule laid out before us if you want to open the building in July of 2026. So I understand your concern from zoning and planning commission kind of standpoint, but at the same time, we're faced from the opposite end of the spectrum for being able to have a fully built building in August 2026, July, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So that's 621,000, that's just for Lincoln Park?
That's
and then
Lincoln
what would
Park.
Southern, because
Yeah.
right now we're scheduled to be voting on both.
Correct. So again, Southern Middle School is 35% of our total fee. For additions and renovations, our fees based on 5.5% of our total estimated construction costs with construction-related soft costs. So 35% comes to $821,389 for basic services. Civil, again, approximate based on how they invoice, $69,472. And food service kind of depends on the direction we go with. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, $3,500 if we start talking about servery improvements. That total comes to $894,361.
Okay. And then that leads into another question with regard to, rates are bound to come down soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if we went to the well to fund this now, it's going to be different than maybe several months from now. So how much can we wait, until we really dip in if we're going to go to the taxpayers and say, hey, right now we have a 10-year mortgage and we're going to turn this into a 20-year mortgage,
Sure.
can we
And
get
that's-
13 years to 10 and make it a 20-year mortgage instead of a 23-year mortgage, et cetera?
I think Mrs. Schlossman is best prepared to field that question.
So when I spoke with Raymond James within the last 2 weeks, they're looking at possibly going out for debt parameters in the spring, summer, but then we'd actually first be going out for debt in the September timeframe, and it's most likely possible in 2 different phases. We want to catch the interest rates going down. And because we have that 21C bond leftover money, we have the seed money. So we're not strapped for cash with Phase 2 projects, which buys us time as well to have those interest rates go down and for Raymond James to be able to give us the best possible scenarios. When it comes to the number of years that the debt would go out, it depends on, 1, how much we're borrowing, and 2, what is our run rate comfort level. So they will be providing us different options at the interest rates that they're projecting that we would possibly catch when we're going out for debt. So it depends on the board's comfort level also of that debt run rate, and how that compares to the number of years and the total overall cost, principal and interest. So it's something that the board would need to look at and analyze when we're closer to the time. I'm thinking when the debt parameters, if we're going to do May, June timeframe, just to get that on the books so that then they can go out to the market when they determine is the best time. We can be looking at that at a finance committee meeting level in depth, and then they can possibly come to a public board meeting as well and present those options.
And as a follow-up to that, Mrs. Schlossman, I believe Wilson has a history, like many individuals do when they refinance their mortgage, of going out at certain times and taking advantage of lower interest rates as the market may bottom out in a couple of years, whatever the case may be. I think we did that obviously in 2021 and pretty much hit the bottom of the market with that current rate. So I know the phrase is.
Yes, they're always looking at the potential to restructure our debt to capture the lowest possible interest rates, which they have saved us millions of dollars over the years, and they will continue to do that as well. Does that
Thank you.
answer your que- Okay, you're welcome.
And then I guess my last question would be, is any concern about, I guess it's, there'll be questions from the public about managing 3 projects at once. So I don't know if we want to, we can speak to that at all.
Managing it as far as,
Performing Arts Center.
from
Lincoln
your
Park.
perspective?
Yeah, because right now, Mr. Simcox is managing the Performing Arts Center. What would be the model for managing 3 projects? Is that all Mr. Simcox and team? Is that partly you? Are we changing? Is
Yeah,
this too early to ask? Just
No,
Sean, can you go back to the timeline, please?
sure.
To visualize the question.
Jeez. All right. So I will say that as far as the high school project goes, we're scheduled to have that complete of August of 2025. So that's kind of halfway through the proposed construction duration for Lincoln Park, and then a little less than half, maybe a third of the way through what we're proposing for the Southern Middle School. I guess I'll remind you that we also have a construction administrative team on our side of things that we help facilitate all the construction matters internally as well. So I think it's, I don't want to speak for Mr. Simcox, but I think, that team approach has been, really fruitful thus far, and I think that can continue to be so through the additional 2 projects. But I don't want to speak for your capacity of your involvement of the next 2 projects too.
Why don't you come up, Jeff, to the microphone?
Thanks, Sean.
So honestly, I think we're fine. The way the performing arts is going to be dwindling down, and in different stages in the major construction, as they go down into different phases, like the mechanicals, different times of the year, different things. Keith Carper with Crabtree helps with the documentation end of things. We approve, we talk regularly every week, have construction management meetings every week. Quite honestly, I don't see that there's a lot of problem with it. One of the things that, as Dr. Trickett can say, is we just hired a custodial supervisor to help with this. One of the things that really seemed to be bogging me down was, as everybody now, with the staff and custodial, like having that probably freed up, I think, which is by design, enough time for me to be managing the three. I'm not afraid of them.
Great, thank you.
So if I can just jump in, from my perspective, managing 3 large construction projects is a lot. It's a lot for people on our team, it's a lot for the board, it's a lot for the community. But I do just want to, again, as I did in, I think it was August 21st, the second time we presented to the board and the community, go back to the enrollment. And have some additional numbers as we were talking through here, just to share. As of today, sitting here, we are 405 students more than we were 5 years ago on this day in the school district. 155 additional kids at elementary, 50 at the middle school, and 200 additional students at our high school in the last 4 years or 5 years. Over the next 5 years, we've been looking at these 5 years intervals, trying to plan out 10, but knowing that we can probably bank more on the 5-year totals. We are projected to grow an additional 55 students at the elementary level, 145 at the middle school, 145 students, and an additional 132, putting us close to 2,300 kids in our high school. So a perfect situation, we would do one of these projects at a time, from my perspective. Unfortunately, we lost that opportunity. We need space at all 3 of those levels. And we talk a lot about elementary. We've presented the elementary numbers, I think, more than a handful of times, but we are feeling significant staff or space issues that's constricting our program. We need to add staff at the middle and high school level, and we don't know where to put them. If 400 new students arrived in 1 year, and you would average roughly 20 students per class, you would need 20 general education teachers in 20 classrooms. We have not built a classroom in the school district in a very long time. So what we feel, and that we ultimately work with our community and the board on, is ideally these would be staggered, right? And one would kind of tail off as another one started. Just we don't know how to slide those reddish bars to allow us to stay with our target points, as Sean mentions. The diamond in 2026, to me, that diamond is not movable. We must start there and work backwards. And the 20-month construction phase is something that Sean feels pretty comfortable with, possibly even going down to an 18-month. I would feel more comfortable with a 20-month construction phase, knowing that where we are with mechanical systems and everything else. So we've talked about that a lot. We just really feel that this is still the best option for all of us. And if we need to get extra help for Mr. Simcox and his team, we'll absolutely advocate for that, as long as he gets his hand up.
I just had a quick question. You mentioned that the PlanCon they don't reimburse, but we still have to go through the process of getting that
It's
approved?
mostly form work from my end. It's PlanCon forms. Yes, that's just the structure that we have to go through to develop all of the project accounting to present in the Act 34 booklet.
But they don't reimburse.
They're not funded to reimburse right now.
They haven't been, though.
State funding.
Other questions? Mrs. Denny?
I will also offer that I know Ms. Schlossman has already started looking into it, and we've been starting to get beginnings of information of maybe applying for grants for the Southern Middle School project, specifically for renovation work. And the time frame that we're currently planning for construction for this works out perfectly with it. We're still in the beginning phases of learning what's required for that, but those are other avenues we're looking for additional funding for you. It sounds like the state has $100 million that will get divvied up, and I think you can apply for a maximum of 5, if I recall correctly. So we're definitely looking into that.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Denny, do you have a question or comment?
I have a comment, not a question. But I do want to thank you for all the work you've done on this. Every time I look at this, you show us the stuff, it changes and it improves, and I think it's really exciting. I just wanted to follow up on what Dr. Trickett said, because I think it's a really important thing to keep in mind is the numbers. When I graduated, there were 310 kids in my class. My daughter started 9th grade high school this year. So that's 35 years, and don't anybody do math, 35 years after I graduated. Her class is the biggest one in Wilson. It's 600 children. So in that time period, the school size has almost doubled. When I went to school, we had junior highs, not middle schools, but we had 2, and one of them was Southern. We still have 2 middle schools, not junior highs, but middle schools. We still have 2, and it's still Southern, and so that hasn't changed, even though our school size has nearly doubled. And to my knowledge, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, Southern has not had any massive, significant expansions in that time period. But for the doubling of school, it's not the size that we're talking about. We have changed the elementary school systems. There's been 3 elementary schools built in that time period, but they replaced smaller schools that closed. So this is much needed. And one of the things I've talked with Dr. Trickett about a lot is that I think we would all love to have a school that could be 4 classes, maybe even 5 classes. Well, I think we would all love that, but we can't let perfection be the enemy of progress. And we're at a point where we need to make progress. Our school is growing. We have children literally exploding at the seams. We have elementary schools that are full. We have a middle school that needs significant upgrades and class sizes that are just increasing. And this plan that you have come up with is dynamic. It offers options for us. And I remember I had friends who were in the Lincoln Park area who cried when that school closed. I saw these women cry because they love that school. And so we are going to put a community-based school in Lincoln Park where families can walk to school and where children can go after school and play and then go home, and where there can be community engagement. And so this is a really exciting plan. And it may not be perfect, but it is really, really great. And I think you've done an amazing job with the options that we have in front of us. And I'm excited to see the comments that the community brings, because you've done a great job incorporating suggestions that have been made, and I think it's just going to keep getting better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always. Okay, moving on to the post-communication portion of our meeting. Ms. Maravich, I don't believe we have any public participation on agenda items this evening. Do you have any announcement? Okay. The board did meet in an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel, approval of minutes, request to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on February 5th, 2024. Looking for a motion for 2.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report, Mr. McCray.
Yes, motion to approve the treasurer's report, investment reports, and general capital funds financial reports as attached to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. We have a motion. Do we have a second for 3.1?
Second.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Payment of bills, Mr. McCray.
Yes, motion to approve the payment of bills from the general fund in the amount of $4,015,438.80.
Thank you. We have a motion for 4.1. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
And financial reports, Mr. McCray.
Yes, motion to approve the financial reports for the month of January, specifically the cafeteria and childcare funds, and then the activity counts at Southern Middle School, West Middle School, and the senior high.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. We have a motion for 5.1. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you. Tonight I present for the board's consideration all items under 6, superintendent's report, inclusive of personnel and program recommendations. Specifically, like to call your attention to Ashley Brown, who has been a part of the Wilson community for a while and is coming on board to serve our students as a long-term substitute for the remaining of the school year. So just really proud of her for choosing to come back and work at Wilson. We look forward to all the impact she makes with our students in our high school ELA program.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent's report, items 6.1 through 6.9 as presented.
So moved.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under 7 consent items, motion to accept with gratitude the donations following from Mr. Gary Kohler, a check for $1,000 to be applied equally to the 5 elementary library budgets to be used at the discretion of the 5 individual librarians for the educational benefit of their students. Looking for motion for 7.1. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Schneider?
I would just like to again thank him from the bottom of my heart for not only his service to the board over years, but his continued generosity to serve the students of the district. It's amazing.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. I echo that as well. Mr. Kohler is, I believe the book donation for the libraries is a yearly contribution, and he's also very involved in the music world in our county as well. So that directly affects our students as well. So a very valuable community member, and we have great gratitude for him. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 8.1, request to approve employee referral bonuses as attached. 8.2, request to approve the addendum to Dr. Christopher Trickett's contract as attached. Looking for a motion to approve Human Resources items 8.1 and 8.2.
Hart, so moved.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 9.1, request permission to contract with News Story for one special education student for the 2023-24 school year. Services at a cost of $366 per day, beginning 12/18/23 and ending 7/26/24, or last day according to school makeup days. 9.2, request approval of a service agreement with Dr. Lisa Hain to perform an independent educational evaluation at a fee not to exceed $4,500 in accordance with Board Policy 113.3, pending solicitor review and approval. 9.3, request approval of a service agreement with Dr. Richard Shillabeer to perform psychoeducational evaluations at a fee not to exceed $4,750, and speech and language evaluations at a fee not to exceed $3,750 in accordance with Board Policy 113.3, pending solicitor review and approval. 9.4, request approval of a student discipline waiver and consent agreement dated February 9th, 2024. And 9.5, request approval of the board committee's recommendation for expulsion. Looking for a motion to approve student service items 9.1 through 9.5.
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Case, second.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider? Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, 10.1, request approval of the purchase of adaptive playground equipment for the Whitfield Elementary Adaptive Playground. 10.2, request approval of the purchase of digital two-way radio equipment from Radio Maintenance, Inc. 10.3, request approval to use field turf for the replacement of the turf field in Gursky. 10.4, request approval to use Bainon for resurfacing of the track surfaces in Gursky Stadium. 10.5, request approval to purchase a dimming rack for Spring Ridge. 10.6, request approval to use HB Fraser Company to install the dimmer rack at Spring Ridge Elementary School. 10.7, request approval to use About All Floors to replace the carpet in the transportation office. Looking for a motion to approve operations items 10.1 through 10.7.
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, any discussion? Mrs. Denny?
I had a chance to look at the plans for the Whitfield Adaptive Playground Project, and I really encourage our community members to look at these plans, and once it's built, to go and look at it. It is just amazing, and the amount of money that was raised by the Whitfield families is also impressive. I think it's sad that to date we haven't had anything for our special needs students that met their special needs, and it is wonderful that we're going to have a playground like this there. And I know that there's plans to have similar playgrounds at all of the schools. It's just that Whitfield has the greatest number of students that need these kinds of facilities. So it's really neat, and I look forward to seeing it put up.
Thank you, Mrs. Denny. Other discussion?
I'll just add that all of these items were discussed at the facilities meeting. I won't add on to the playground equipment, which is phenomenal. Well, the only thing I will say is that, I mean, you're talking about a $95,000 expenditure that, with all the donations, turns it into a $30,000+ project, which is a great partnership with the community, students, staff, and then the Education Foundation, which helps manage some of the donations. 10.2, with regard to the two-way radio equipment, so we had, I mean, that's a necessity to be able to upgrade the equipment to a digital platform so we can expand communication across the district with regard to new radios. And the one thing that I would add on that is that there's a grant for $45,000 that was actually used as well that's going to go towards that dollar amount. So that's great news as well. The field for Gursky Stadium, we have spoken about this quite a bit with regard to our turf fields. We take about 10% of the cost to the turf fields and put that in our budget every year. So when it comes time to replacing those fields on a 10-year basis, which I believe this field is 13 years old, so we are 3 years over the lifespan of the turf, which is great. We're, if we can do it, we'll do it as long as it's safe. But it is time to come in and replace that turf. So that was pulled in a year early, I believe, because of the breaking down of the turf, and the timing is right. But that was talked about in the facilities meeting as well, along with the track on the outside of the Gursky field. 10.4, we talked about that. 10.5 was a safety issue for the dimming rack at Spring Ridge, so 10.5 and 10.6 is to purchase that and replace it. And then 10.7 was just, that needed an upgrade. So anyway, if anyone has any questions regarding that, my facilities report out will be a lot less because I just did it now.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Mr. Case. Dr. Kennedy?
Yeah, I am going to pile on to the Whitfield Playground because it is such a fantastic project. Again, the parents and families at Whitfield raised $70,000. They are not the only people who will benefit. One of the things I learned throughout the process of learning about the playground is that we are many miles away from we're, not within in a 5-mile radius or a 10-mile radius. I think it was 23 miles is the close.
Conrad Weiser has one now, so it's getting closer.
It's getting, but we were very far away, so it wasn't easy for a family to just pick up and spend the day at a playground for their child with special needs. The only equipment that we've had in the past were 2 giant wheelchair seats, but you couldn't put the wheelchair in. You had to have someone lift the child out of the wheelchair and put them in and then swing in the wheelchairs, and they didn't last. The seat belts constantly fell off and the buckles, and the kids really played with them quite hard. I think, when we made that commitment, and it's been a long time now that we made that commitment to recess. Do you remember that was November of 2019, where this district made the commitment to children, to let children be children and to treat them developmentally appropriately. And I think this is a continuation of that commitment. I think, in the past 4 years that our, students have had recess, we've reaped the benefits. I'm in districts all the time where I just see behaviors that I believe firmly could be prevented by getting students outside, giving them free playtime. Our students are on devices all the time. When they're out recess, they learn to play with each other. They learn to be bored. And if they don't want to be bored, they have to be imaginative, or they have to learn how to play with a ball. And I'm so proud of our administration and our faculty for understanding that recess is not taking away from academic time. Our recess is adding to our academic time by allowing our students to have age-appropriate behavior, get their wiggles out, and come back in and have time to really learn. And what's happening right now is that our students in our life skills and our multiple disabilities classes at Whitfield aren't able to interact and benefit from that outdoor time as much as their same-aged peers at Whitfield Elementary. And this is a true step towards equity in that we will have a place for these students to play together and to participate. And I think it's such a commitment to all of our children throughout the district, and hopefully will be a destination for families to be in the greater community, to be able to come and to share in our commitment to play for all children, outdoor play for all children. So again, I think, Ryan, if you want to, we do have a video here. If anyone else would like to donate, we will take your money. We can still use it. And it shouldn't just be for Whitfield families, because again, this is something that will benefit the community as a whole. And I want to just thank my Whitfield families again for all their commitment, and I do think it's time that we spread the love even more, because it will spread throughout our Wilson community and beyond.
Together, we can do it. A place at recess where we can all play together. Student Council can help too.
Hi, Whitfield. The WHSA can help too.
Did you hear that? A new play area where you can all play together.
There right away, that would be so much fun.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy.
It's hard to vote no after that.
Oh, I should thank poor Mrs. P, who picked maybe the world's worst board meeting to come to. So, I'm so sorry. But thank you for being so supportive.
Dr. Trickett?
So just real quickly, Mary Beth is back there in the corner. Appreciate you hanging tight here for what's now about 2 hours of the meeting. So if you don't know Mary Beth, she's a passionate educator at Whitfield, and she's a tenacious and caring and committed individual who really has, along with her colleagues and friends at Whitfield, has continued to ensure that this project got completed to the scope and the vision that the students and the staff had. So this is the second authorization on the agenda for the board. Previously, the board committed funds to make some improvements to all of the elementary playgrounds, specifically to make them more accessible to students in each of those schools. This next process, to which again the team raised over $70,000 of community members and taxpayers and friends of the district's money, a lot of that project was led by the staff at Whitfield and Mary Beth. So just wanted to thank her publicly. I know she's here tonight for all that she continues to do to advocate for kids. And I hope that this goes through and moves us closer to achieving the vision that has been established.
Every day I go to recess for all the different grade levels that I have, that really truthfully there's nothing my kids can do to interact with the kids. I can bring out bubbles, I can bring out a ball, and I can try to draw those other kiddos in, but it just isn't a natural environment for them, and it would be life-changing. I do have 3 Why Missing Tuition students in my room, so a lot of those families, despite not living in Wilson, have also catered to the project and said this would be amazing, and gone to their families for some fundraising. So not just Wilson, within the community. It's just, passionate about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
You were dismissed. Well, do you want to hear the vote? Do you want to hear the vote quick? Okay. Okay, so having a motion and a second and a good conversation. Roll call for 10.1 through 10.7, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
On to finance. 11.1, request approval of the budget transfers dated January 11th, 2024 through February 15th, 2024, as attached. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Transportation, 12.1, request approval to award contracts for the purchase of fuel for the 2024-25 school year through the Berks County Joint Purchasing Board to Petroleum Traders Corporation for diesel plus adder pricing at .1280 per gallon, and to World Fuel Services for unleaded gasoline at a fixed price of $2 and 2.1481 per gallon as attached. 12.2, request approval for the retirement through auction of transportation vehicles units 80, 82, and 91. 12.3, request permission to issue a request for bid for the procurement of liquid propane for a period to cover the 2024-25, 2025-26, and 2026-27 school years. 12.4, request permission to issue a request for bid for the procurement of maintenance and repair services for the liquid propane pumps, dispensers, and tank for a period to cover the 2024-25, 25-26, and 26-27 school years. Looking for a motion to approve transportation items 12.1 through 12.4.
So moved, Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schroeder? Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Early Learning Childcare, 13.1, request approval of the 2024-25 school, preschool and childcare rates for Berkshire Heights Elementary Learning Center as attached. And 13.2, request motion to approve a sign-on bonus for Lisa Weiser, lead teacher at Green Valley for before and after-school childcare. Looking for a motion to approve early learning childcare items 13.1 and 13.2. Mr. McCree, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
14.1, under extracurricular, request approval of a contract with Market Street Sports and Bachman's Roofing, Building, and Remodeling, Inc. for scoreboard advertising at Gursky Stadium for $5,500 a year for 3 years. Looking for a motion for 14.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Hart.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I would just like to point out, this is, I believe, our fourth company that we're working with through Market Streets. Some of the advertising is already on the facilities. It looks great. And I'm really happy because before this project started, there was, at least for myself, a little apprehension of what kind of companies would be coming to us. And I think it's great that the 4 companies that we're working with are all local and have a community investment. So the added revenue is also not anything to scoff at. So $5,500 a year for Bachman's on our stadium, I'll take it. Having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under policies is our second reading, Board Policy 251, students experiencing homelessness, foster care, and other educational instability. There was no vote tonight, and our final reading and vote will be next meeting. Miscellaneous, as Dr. Trickett alluded to earlier, our enrollment as of February 15th, 2024 is 6,488, which is the same as the previous report on January 16th. And on to committee reports. BCTC, Mrs. Casper.
Thank you, President Cocker. BCTC, the JOC has not met since our last meeting, but I did want to just highlight that the sending districts were given information about this year's BCTC Career Camp 2024, which is June 10th through the 14th this year at the East Campus in Ole. It's $50 per student. There is a cap at 100 students or 100 spots that are available for the Career Camp. And the camp offers hands-on experiences in several programs offered by BCTC, including horticulture, heavy equipment operations, sports medicine and rehabilitation therapy, culinary arts, and carpentry. So the camp is designed to help students explore their interests and gain exposure to potential career paths that they may not have considered before. So by participating, students will have the opportunity to interact with professionals in these fields and engage in activities that will broaden their understanding of various career options. If you want more information and information about registering for the camp, you can check the BCTC website. Also, BCTC does have an education foundation. We're talking a lot about fundraising. So if anybody wants to donate towards that, also the Education Foundation, you can get information on that at the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. And is that, I think I saw an advertisement for that camp, is it 6th grade through 8th grade?
Yes,
Is that?
it is. Yes, it is. It's grades 6 through 8.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying that.
Dr. Kennedy, BCIU, Curriculum and Student Services.
We did not have a curriculum or a student services meeting since our last meeting. I know Dr. Heckman, who is watching, will forgive me for giving a very brief report of our 3-hour meeting last Thursday for the BCIU. The 25th Annual Board Presidents and Superintendents Workshop was held, and both Dr. Trickett and Mrs. Cocker were there. I do want to say one of our favorite days is coming up soon, and that is the Annie Sullivan's Award Ceremony will be Wednesday, April 3rd. So I know they're getting ready for those awards soon. Also, upcoming is the Berks County School and Safety Security Summit, and that's Wednesday, April 24th. So some good events that will be coming up for the BCIU. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman. Thank you. Extracurricular Committee, we met last Monday, February 12th at noon. Some highlights, as I mentioned, under extracurricular, the Marcus Street Sports, that, we've been attracting local businesses, and we had a discussion on what to do with the revenue, and one proposal, which we still need to have further discussion on and obviously bring to the full board, is the concept of possibly phasing out our activity fees. Phasing out because initially we don't have enough money to cover that, but should we receive enough revenue from the Market Street program, possibly phasing out activity fees for students to participate in extracurriculars. We also discussed the possibility of, and we had this program previously, but increasing our intramural offerings at all levels. I know when I first started teaching, we had intramurals in the elementary schools, and the kids would just stay after school, and we did, floor hockey, and when the weather got nicer, we had kickball outside. Just something extra for the students, especially elementary age, who aren't able to participate in middle school and high school athletics, just something to offer them, as well as sports like basketball or volleyball, where the teams are so small, and we have so many students, almost, 2150 just in the high school. Not everybody's going to make the team. So there are plenty of hopeful athletes who then don't know what to do with their season. So just the concept of possibly bringing an intramurals program back to our district. The first day of spring sports starts March 4th. And in this spring season, we are hoping to pilot our hometown ticketing program where families are able to purchase tickets online, similar like I just did for Little Mermaid, but with a different service. But we will also still offer cash at the gate for individuals that prefer that. And in reference to Little Mermaid, I know you're probably going to touch on this, Bryce, but don't forget, the musical is the February 29th, March 1st, and March 2nd. And March 1st, the students don't have school, so you could go the 29th, and it would be late, and it wouldn't be that big a deal.
And March 2nd, there's an afternoon show, too, which is
And
family-friendly.
There's 2 shows March 2nd, right, thank you, Mr. McCray. So just pushing that. It's our last musical in this auditorium, ever. Last event, this is it. So come out and see it. That is my report for extracurricular. Facilities Committee, Mr. Case.
Thank you, President Cocker. So I spoke quite a bit about some of the, there was a meeting Monday, February 12th as well, at 4:30 p.m. So some of the things that we talked about at that meeting, we had the entire presentation from Crabtree and Rohrbach that everyone saw, so that was the majority of the meeting for Lincoln Park and Southern. We talked about the capital spending update. There's approximately $257,000 left for projects. There were a lot of projects that have happened over the course of the 23-24 year, so this is for the remaining projects that amount of money is left. If anyone would like to see the capital spending update, you can go to the website under the Facilities Committee and see that link, which is there for each of the meetings that we have. We had a Performing Arts Center update, which I'll just quickly read. The project is well underway, and the underground water storage system is slated to be finished to subgrade for paving by the end of next week, which is the end of this week coming up. The canopy has been demolished, and excavation for the new construction is moving along nicely. Interior demolition is slated to start on March 22nd, which leaves 2 weeks after our last performance in the existing auditorium, which is on for March 8th. So to remove any items from behind the stage for storage until we occupy the new facility. So that is the update for now. Let's see, what else did we discuss there? So everything else was part of the items that we approved already. And then today we had a joint facilities and technology meeting today upstairs, and we had a presentation from the company with regard to camera and door access. Now, we've talked about this as a board and also in obviously in public for quite some time about replacing our cameras. We have approximately 500 cameras on all the campuses and 170 door access door locks that we want to get integrated with those cameras. That we have to make our campuses more secure. We need to have better access for when there is an issue, or we want to be proactive about what's going on in our schools, that it's not taking hours to find the total truth of what has transpired. We want to get that down to minutes. So a new camera system, getting the technology is so much better than when we first installed multiple different systems, that we need to get them up to speed. So it's going to be an expensive project. There's going to be more to come on, a presentation to the full board and the public, and some potential ways to fund that, which will be coming, in the next meeting or two, right? So that is it. The next meeting is sometime in March. I don't have that date in front of me. I'll talk about that next time. Anyone know the date for the next facilities meeting? Give me 2 seconds, and more to come on that. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Case.
I think, isn't it the 12th, March 12th?
April? April.
Oh, April, sorry.
Thank you.
Finance Committee, Mr. McCray.
No report.
Thank you. Legislative, Mr. Schneider.
I have no report.
All right. Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's ramping up to be a busy season for the hiring time. A couple job fairs, Millersville and the Pittsburgh area. We're looking for qualified candidates. Please apply if you know someone that is entering the education field or looking to transfer to a different district, please encourage them to apply. Looking to fill retirements, resignations, and enrollment growth. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. For public relations this evening, Mrs. Troutman is not with us, but she has a report from Sam Weitzel. Okay, oh, she's in the back. Sorry, Sam.
So, like you said, Mrs. Troutman couldn't be here tonight, but we just have two quick updates. So we want to let our community know that that kindergarten registration for the 2024-2025 school year will open online on March 4th. We will promote registration through our communication channels as well as through an ad in the Spring Township newsletter that they have graciously allowed us to include for no charge. We are very excited to welcome our newest Bulldogs to the Wilson School District. And then also the communication team recently redesigned the Bulldog Blitz to reflect the vision of our district's district vision, The new design features student spotlights, district updates, events, job posting, district resources, and more. This publication is sent out via email to subscribers and staff. I'm sorry, I was caught off guard. On the first and third Friday of each month during the school year. Because we know many stakeholders in our community may not be aware of this publication, we created a 6x9 postcard that will be mailed to all residents promoting signing up for the Blitz as well as information about our social media channels. It is our hope that these communication tools will help to provide important information to our community, as well as celebrate all the amazing accomplishments of our students and staff. Thanks.
Thank you very much for taking over. I would like to just add one thing about public relations as well. I don't know if people have seen, it's kind of like a photo comparison of people who are current employees, but were also alumni of Wilson. So they, Mrs. Troutman, I believe, and her team went back and found their yearbook photos and then compared them to their employee photos. It's great.
And I would like to point out that certain board presidents might also meet that criteria should Mrs. Troutman want to go down that road.
I think there are a number of board
And
members,
board
Mr.
members.
Schneider, that would meet that criteria. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
Yes, just a quick update from the Education Foundation. Tickets are on sale. The Wilson Iron Chef competition and benefit auction is coming Sunday, March 17th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Wilson High School. You don't want to miss the event. People come from all around Berks County to go to this event, not just Wilson, but it's a great event. Some things are being changed up a bit. We are thrilled to have 3 student teams and teachers from Conrad Weiser, Governor Mifflin, and Wilson competing for the 2024 Iron Chef title, and featuring our celebrity chef, Tim Twyford of Redner's Markets. So this is, I guess it's basically 3 teams of family consumer science students along with their chef teacher mentors. So changing up a bit. Tickets are on sale. They're $20 in advance, $25 at the door. Students 18 and under, it's $15 in advance, $20 at the door. Children 3 and under are free, and there's advanced ticket purchases are recommended. There's also a first taste ticket. So for $30, you can get in at noon, which is an hour before everything starts, before all the crowds are there. You get to go and do a lap around, taste all the great stuff. It's a real fun time, and the competition's wonderful. So I do want to add that, you can go online on the Wilson School District website and learn all about it. From a sponsorship perspective, the doors are wide open for sponsorships. The deadline to submit any kind of donations is Friday, March 8th. There's mail-in donations and raffle forms. There's sponsorship opportunities. The deadline for sponsorship opportunities is March 1st, Friday. So please reach out and become a sponsor or donor or buy some tickets and go see the event. It's great. A lot of great eating. You will leave full for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
Yes, as Mr. Case mentioned, we did meet in a joint meeting earlier today, and since Mr. Case did such a great job summarizing everything that was said, I will avoid my 30-minute summarization of the camera discussion in the interest of time here. But I will say 2 other points were covered from an IT perspective, one of which is that we will be installing a time-lapse camera in the parking lot. which will record the progress made in the Performing Arts Center building. So you can look forward in a couple months from now from one of those 30-second videos of how fast, the Performing Arts Center went up. So it should be a great thing for us to view down the road. The other thing is we are looking for new pricing for our 5-year Microsoft agreement. And so far, the preliminary numbers look favorable and might actually have a cost saving to the district. So still to be determined. But that's my report.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. McCray. Student outreach, Mr. Bryce Heilman.
Thank you. Last week, students celebrated Valentine's Day across the district. Elementary students had their annual in-class parties, and at the high school, the tenors and basses of the select choir sang a barbershop rendition of Billy Joel's For the Longest Time around the school. Also last Thursday, the treble and select choirs hosted their annual February concert with the theme Love. This past weekend, both the boys and girls swimming and diving teams were named BCIAA champions. The boys' basketball team was also named Berks County champions last week as well. Congratulations to all the hardworking athletes on this accomplishment. This weekend, the cast of The Little Mermaid will be hosting a donut breakfast at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the Lower House cafeteria, where you can meet and greet some of the beloved characters from the show. Also on Saturday at 1 p.m., Minithon is hosting a 3v3 basketball tournament. There is still time for students to sign up to participate. Also on Saturday, the Hope for Humanity Club will be participating in the 5K Coldest Night of the Year walk to raise money for those experiencing hurt, hunger, and homelessness in the Reading community. And like everyone else was saying, next week on Thursday the 29th, Wilson Theater Company will be having the opening night for their spring musical, The Little Mermaid. Tickets are on sale now, and the performances will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m., as well as another Saturday performance at 2 p.m. We hope you all consider participating in or enjoying some of these amazing upcoming student events, and we look forward to seeing what is accomplished in the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maravich, do you have a report? I don't believe we have. Okay. I do not believe we have any public participation on agenda items. Any other business from the board? Mrs. Denny.
Sorry, I know it's been a long night, but I did want to briefly talk about our curriculum because that's kind of the core of why we're here. And I share my experiences because I think it's helpful to people who either aren't experiencing this or haven't been in school for a while. But this was the time period right now where the high school, the last few weeks, where the kids picked their classes. And we were talking in pre-board about how our high school numbers are as big as some of our local colleges, that we are comparable. And our curriculum is comparable to some of those. And the kids have the opportunities, the students have the opportunities to take courses they might not be able to take until they get into college. Last year was my first experience with this, so I was all ready this year when it got announced that this was out to sit down with my daughter and plan it. So I was like, all right, let's go and do this. And she came and she's like, Mom, we don't need to do this. I've already met with all of my teachers. Every teacher she had already sat down, met with her, and made a suggestion whether she should continue what she was doing. In 2 instances, they said, you should move and do this and do this. And she came to me and already had planned out her entire schedule for the next year. And as a parent, the most exciting thing was, on a whim last year, she took a course that I would have never suggested she take because I didn't think that was something my daughter would ever want to do. But she said, oh, I would take it. She decided to do it. And because of this now, she's decided that she wants to go into healthcare, something I would have never figured, though it's in our family genes. And all of a sudden, she has this whole new plan in life for her, which only came about because she took a course that was entirely optional, which when we were in school wasn't even an option. So I want to thank Dr. Stout, Dr. Cucifino for all their work in creating such an outstanding curriculum. I really want to encourage the high school students and the rising students, the 8th graders who are coming into the high school, try out stuff you wouldn't try out because you never know where it's going to take you. I just think it's really exciting that we can offer all these opportunities, and I see Bryce shaking his head because I know you know this. So, and welcome back. We missed you last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Denny. Other discussion from the board? Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.